wanna be down with the king.
It's the Sports Kings.
Sports Kings. Big Mike.
He might fall off the wagon in the next 10 minutes.
And Rob Calloway.
It's about bringing talent. It's not about all the flash and glitz and glam.
Not your average sports talk show. The Sports Kings.
This is NFL legend, work done.
This your boy D. Howard, a.k.a. Superman.
I'm Jerome Bettis, the bus.
It's Cam Newton. Holla at your boy, already.
This is Hank Aaron, and I'm down with the King.
Tell a friend, Kings is back.
Welcome into a Tuesday edition of the Sports Kings podcast. Yours truly, Big Mike. Rob Calloway will be joining me shortly as we do our first really extended edition of the Sports Kings podcast. It'll be a little over 2 hours today because we do have a special guest that I told you guys about yesterday. Don't forget, we're being heard via Spreaker.com. You guys can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all three at Sports Kings Live, as well as you can email the show, sportskingslive@gmail.com. Yes, indeed, this will be an extended show for today because, like I told you guys yesterday, we're being joined by Steve Silver, the founder of thelegalblitz.com. He is the gentleman who wrote the article that I spoke about on Friday, the article that kind of changed my position on a certain issue. Georgia's new Todd Gurley law does nothing to protect the athletes. You can find him on Twitter at thelegalblitz.com and make sure you guys follow him the same way we do. And without further ado, we'll welcome in our guest, Steve Silver. Steve, how are you doing today? For the second time, as a matter of fact. How are you?
I'm good. It's finally not winter in Philadelphia, so it feels good.
Yeah, that's weird. This weather is weird. I just saw him the other day shoveling snow off the Colorado Rockies field in the middle of May. Go figure, right? Before we get started, let's tell everyone who you are and tell everyone what thelegalblitz.com actually is.
Absolutely. So I'm a lawyer here in Philadelphia, practice in a variety of areas, one of which does involve sports. And before I became a lawyer, I was a reporter for the Las Vegas Sun, covering everything from World Series of Poker to UNLV sports. So I started thelegalblitz.com to cover everything and anything involving sports law. And one of my practice specialties is representing, athletes against whether it be high school athletic bodies or the NCAA. And so that tends to be what I write about. But as you know, the law touches almost everything in sports these days.
Beautiful segue. Beautiful segue. Because now we're talking about the law being involved in the biggest topic in the country, I guess, right now, because a lot of the things that were on the front pages of newspapers across the country have now gone because of what is happening in New England with the Patriots, and that being the quote-unquote Deflategate. Like, I feel like an idiot every time I say that because I feel like ESPN has a mission in hand to make everyone stupid. And they want to attach a gate to any controversy. Like, that's really a thing. But for conversation purposes, we'll call it Deflategate. And don't fear, everyone. We'll get to the Todd Gurley thing before we let Steve go. But the big dog in the room right now, or the big elephant in the room right now, is the Deflategate situation in New England, in which Tom Brady has been suspended for 4 games. The organization as a whole has been fined $1 million, and they lost a draft pick in 2016, a first-round draft pick in 2016, and a fourth-round pick in 2017. Now, I know a lot of people have been hearing a lot of things. Some of you haven't read the Wells Report in totality, myself included. But I know one of the things, Steve, that people have really gotten themselves caught up on is the language and how it relates to the NFL, in particular, the preponderance of evidence thing. People want to know, like, the people who are on the Patriot side say, well, that's not even real proof. And the people who are on the other side of the fence say, well, that's all the proof they need. From your expertise, can you explain to us the preponderance of evidence and how it applies to this particular matter?
Absolutely. So the one thing we need to forget is criminal court, right? Beyond a reasonable doubt.
Okay.
That is not what this is. This standard is the standard that we use in civil court. So if you're in a car accident or you slip and fall at a store and you sue, this is what it's going to be, a preponderance of the evidence, which as judges will explain to juries, as I explain to juries, if you had a scale, in a balancing scale, and you put one more little piece of something on the one side and it tilts ever so slightly, that's preponderance of the evidence. Think of it as 51%. That's all you need. It's a much lower standard in civil court, and I think a lot of people don't know that or don't experience that because we watch TVs and movies about criminal law in which it's beyond a reasonable doubt, which is nearly 100%.
Right, and there's always the DNA, the hair or the blood or the semen or something that gets the person convicted. There's always that thing on CSI. But that's not the case here,
right,
was what you're saying.
Exactly.
The Wells report as a whole, you're a guy who deals with billable hours and things of that nature. Was it a little bit of overkill by the NFL? Did they kind of overextend themselves as far as what they paid, the amount of time it took and resources it took to come to this conclusion?
Well, the money's huge. The NFL could have paid me a fraction of it, and I could have come to the same conclusion if they wanted me to. This is a law firm, the Ted Wells, his firm, that reaps millions of dollars every year from the NFL. The NFL paid that firm nearly $8 million for negotiating the concussion settlement.
Mm-hmm.
So they know where their bread is buttered. So to think this report was coming out any other way would be silly. But to invest the resources in to create a 200 and some page report, I think you had to do it because it speaks to the actual on the field game.
Okay.
So much of what's going on now, with the focus of NFL discipline, are off the field issues. Right? It doesn't really impact the field of play, but this a lot of people believe it does. And maybe it does. It didn't help the Patriots beat the Colts. That's for one thing.
Absolutely.
But maybe they've done it in other games where it did have a big influence.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I stood on it from the very, very beginning. Like, I gave my opinion on this from the very beginning. I felt like there was no way in the world that if this is a first-time thing, let's try it, you're not going to do that on the biggest stage to that point in the season. You're not going to risk it at that point. So my common sense told me that this is something that has gone on before that game. And then you find out it was because the coach reported it earlier, and some of the Ravens players came forward and said the same thing. You mentioned the money, and you mentioned the outcome turning out this way being kind of inevitable, and that's what Don Yee, is his name Don? Am I saying that right? Yes, Don Yee, Tom Brady's attorney / agent. He made a big stink about that as well. He talked about there being a conflict of interest. And Mr. Wells came out firing today on a conference call because now he feels as though his integrity is in the line of fire. As an attorney, how important is that? Your public reputation and your integrity, especially in a case of this magnitude.
Well, it's huge. Especially if you're working in this space, right? You want to keep being employed, whether it's by the league or by these other, billionaire team owners, right? If you're at that level and you can practice that level, you want to make sure that everyone trusts you. However, the client in this case is the NFL. You serve the client. So as impartial as you can be, as smart as you can be, there's always going to be those slight biases or concerns, whether you realize them or not as you're doing your investigation. We're all blinded by that. Whether you're in court or not, you're just blinded by natural biases, and it's hard to imagine that didn't happen here. It's particularly hard to imagine because I think this report and Ted Wells and Roger Goodell took it personally that Tom Brady wouldn't cooperate with the investigation.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what Tom Brady is feeling right now, which is, you didn't give us your cell phone. Not that he should have, but you didn't turn over emails and text messages and help us out, so we're not going to help you out.
And they actually referenced that Troy Vincent and Roger Goodell and Mr. Wells actually referenced both of those things. The fact that they felt slighted by the fact that the Patriots didn't allow one of the athletic trainers, or the equipment managers, to speak with him again. That Tom Brady didn't volunteer the information as they saw pertinent to this case to them. A lot of those things, you're right, were mentioned, and they seem to have taken offense to those things. This is the Sports Kings podcast. We're talking right now to Steve Silver, the founder of LegalBlitz.com. You guys make sure you go and follow him the way we do at thelegalblitz.com. A couple more things on this Bountygate thing before we move on to one of my favorite organizations in the world. I mentioned it earlier, I alluded to it earlier, that very few people are dwelling in that space of gray. Like, so many people are either black about this or they're white about this, and they're very, very passionate about this, about the Deflategate situation. As an attorney, if you could, can you one, prosecute this case on one side, and on the other hand, defend this case based on the information that we know from the Wells report? Can you do that for our listeners?
Well, listen, on this case, what is there proof of? That's the first question. There is proof, and enough proof, that Tom Brady knew something was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Did he know that he was being deflated past the .12 and past the legal line? There's no proof of that. I think there's enough to, let's say, not convict, but find him guilty in a civil setting of he knew something was going on. There's no way you're a Hall of Fame quarterback, the Super Bowl winning quarterback that throws hundreds of footballs every day, and you didn't know that these were underinflated. And I find it hard to believe, after spending years, in locker rooms of almost every professional sport, that these two locker room attendants were acting alone.
Right. That's the most absurd part.
That doesn't happen. Yeah. Now, the relationships, they vary. I've seen them in all sports, but I would suspect in the Patriots organization that Tom and these guys had a relationship, and they knew what he liked and what he didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of a defense perspective, look, the one thing I've been calling for all year last year, and now we're going into this season, is where is the players' union? I mean, why are they letting the NFL basically do what they want, whenever they want? If I'm Tom Brady's agent or his union rep, I'm absolutely appealing. And I'm saying, look, you want me to cooperate? It's going to be in a setting I choose, and in a neutral, in front of a neutral, whether it's an arbitrator or a mediator. And I'll show you, I didn't know I was breaking the rules. And that 4 games is ridiculous.
Yeah,
but if I'm the NFL...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. But if I'm the NFL, I'm saying, look, this is on-field competition. I mean, this is our greatest fear. If we lose credibility of on-field neutrality and fair competition, then we lose everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you can't upset those gamblers. As the NFL seems to have this aversion for gambling, but they love their fantasy football as though it's not the same thing. But another issue for another day. One last thing on this. On two occasions, 2 people today, Peter King, one, suggested that after Robert Kraft said that he would just, take his beating, lick his wounds, and move on, after the findings came out, he kind of changed his tone a little bit. And also, Donald Trump was on ESPN. Don't start laughing yet. Donald Trump was on ESPN today, and he talked about his friendship with Brady and Mr. Kraft. And his suggestion was that Tom Brady sue the league for $250 million, and you'll watch his suspension turn from 4 to 0. Peter King suggested the same thing about Robert Kraft. He felt as though Robert Kraft, I think his words were, he predicts that he'll go rogue and probably take this thing to court. What basis does either man have to stand on as far as a court of law goes?
Well, I would question that strategy. Look, in the grand scheme of things, the money is small to these people, right? Tom Brady loses, I think, $2 million over the 4 games, and Kraft loses $1 million. That's peanuts to those guys. Now, reputation-wise, there is some value there, and there are damages they could claim. However, as soon as they file that lawsuit,